establishing validity of test. Validity is regarded as the basic requirement of every test. It refers to the degree to which a test measures what is intended to be measured. So, in fact, validity is thought or considered to be the most important prerequisite for every exam. When a test measures what is supposed to measure, it is said to be accurate to the extent that the conclusions or inferences made from it are valid. Inaccurate or misleading conclusions may result from test findings na hindi accurately reflect sa idea or quality being evaluated. So, can the test perform its intended function? This is the business of validity and the one adopted by the classical model for regarding validity. So, next slide. There are three conventional types of validity. This is according to Anastasia and Urbina 1997. The first one is the content validity. It refers to how the test covers a representative sample of the behavior domain to measured. In educational tests, it is established by a systematic examination of the course syllabi, which becomes basis for the selection of the outcomes that be included sa paggawa ng test specifications, and yung alignment is nagsiserve as strong evidence ng content validity. Tinitiyak nito na yung test is accurately reflects the intended construct. These types of validity assess whether the test content covers the full range of the concept it aims to measure. Halimbawa, a math test should cover a variety of topics relevant to the mathematical abilities it seeks to assess. So the second types is the criterion-related validity. Two kinds is the concurrent and predictive validity, which are dependent on the strength of correlation between test scores and another external measures or criterion of the behavior intended to be measured. The criterion-related validity has two kinds that differ in terms of assuring what the test measures. A significant correlation between the test scores and another related test administered almost at the same time frame indicates concurrent validity, and that the former similarly measures what the other external test is measuring. Predictive validity is similar in procedure, except that the data is gathered after a considerable period of time after the new test has been administered. So the new test performs as the predictor variable, while the external measures is the criterion variable. Halimbawa, yung standard assessment test, which is the predictor, is administered to high school students, and then their college grade point average, which is the criterion, is measured after a few years. So if the standard assessment test scores correlate highly with their grade point average, the SAT would demonstrate predictive validity. Because again, the criterion-related validity evaluates whether the test correlates well with a relevant criterion or outcomes. So the third types and last is the construct validity. Involves empirical examination of the psychological construct hypothetically assumed to be measured. It is established by doing a factor analysis of the test items to bring about what defines the overall construct. So it determines if the test measures a unitary construct or if it's a multidimensional construct as shown by the resultant factors. These so-called validities have for a while been what are required to be established by educational and psychological tests. There examines whether the test truly measure the theoretical construct it intends to assess. For example, if a test is designed to measure intelligence, construct validity ensures it accurately captures that trait, rather than something else like memory or language proficiency. While validity is spoken with reference to what the test purpose to measure, The concept as applied for large-scale testing has shifted in the degree to which evidence and theory support the interpretations of test scores entailed by proposed uses of tests. This is according to Messick, 1995, page 741, as cited by Crandwell, 2005. According to Messick, validity is not just about whether a test measures what it is intended to measure. That is the accuracy of the test content, but also about the interpretations and uses of the test scores. Sa ibang salita, validity should be seen as a broader, more integrated concept that involves both evidence and theory supporting the intended interpretations of test results. So, there are five types of evidence for validity are part of a framework proposed by MISIC to assess the overall validity of a test. So the first one is the evidence based on test content. It evaluates how well the test items represent the full content domain of the construct being measured. It helps to establish that the test adequately covers the concept it aims to assess. So the second one is the evidence based on response processes. This refers to the cognitive and psychological processes that test takers engage in while answering test items. The processes involved in responding to the test items reflect the intended construct. For example, when a test measures problem-solving ability, the test takers should be engaging in problem solving, not just memorization. So the third one is the evidence based on internal structure. So it involves analyzing the relationships among test items and how they fit together to measure the intended construct. It helps assess whether the test has a coherent internal structure that supports its validity. So the fourth is the evidence based on the relations to other variables. It examines how the test scores relate to others measure or variables that are theoretically related to the construct being measured. It provides evidence that the test behaves as expected in relation to the variables that should be related or unrelated to the construct. And lastly, the evidence on based on consequences of testing. This involves evaluating the social and practical consequences of using the test scores. It helps also assess the ethical implications of using a test, especially in high-stakes testing situations, for example, college admissions and employment decisions. So, pertinent to large-scale test, validity refers to the meaning placed on how test results are used and how they impact individuals, persons, and society as a whole. Thus, working on the validity of a large-scale test um, calls for explicitly validating its uses for a specific purpose. So a large in this large scale testing, validity goes beyond the test itself to include the appropriateness or the appropriate use of the test results. The meaning of those results in the context being modeled um, and the broader social consequences. The validity of a test in this context is important not just for the accuracy of measurements, but for the fairness and ethics of the decisions that rely on those test results. So, the type of validity that looks into the social impact of a test result on an individual, a group, or a school is referred to consequential validity. So that specifically addresses the social impact of a test and its results on individual, group, or institutions such as schools. It refers to the consequences and implications of tests used specifically in large scale or high stakes testing scenarios. Okay, so we can move to the estimating reliability of large-scale tests. Another challenge for large-scale tests is its reliability to show that they can produce stable and consistent results. This refers to this refers to consistency of measurement over time across versions of the test, across the test items, and across scoring judges for the same group of individuals, according to Phelan and Wren 2006. The test produces stable and consistent results, free from random errors or fluctuations across different conditions or situations. Reliability is related to the concept of error of measurement, which indicates the degree of fluctuation likely to occur in an individual score as a result of irrelevant chance factors, which Anastasia and Urbina 1997 call error variance. This occurs when the differences between scores are not attributable to the construct being measured but simply due to chance, something which cannot be controlled. Thus, an instrument with a large error variance is likely not to be valid since the scores are not indicative of the person's true score but are likely just a product of chance. So, as it said, all valid tests are reliable, but not all reliable tests are valid. So, the more error variance, the lower the reliability, as the test results are less stable and consistent. In relation naman doon sa kasabihan na all valid tests are reliable but not all reliable tests are valid, that saying means that every valid test must be reliable because in order for a test to accurately measure what it intends to, the results need to be stable and consistent. Kapag yung isang test gives inconsistent results or low reliability, it cannot be trusted to measure anything validly. So next slide is um, there are several ways of estimating the reliability of a test, and they are grouped according to the number of times the test is administered to the same group of students. So these two test sessions is the test to the test reliability, where the same test is given twice with a time interval not exceeding 6 months. So this test-retest reliability is particularly useful for measuring constructs that are expected to remain stable over time, such as intelligence or personality traits. However, if the test is meant to measure something that may change over time, for example, mood, a longer interval between administrations could introduce variability unrelated to the test itself. So the next one is the alternate form reliability, where two comparable versions of the test are administered to the same individuals. This is also widely known as parallel form reliability since they emerge from the same table of specifications. So this alternate form reliability refers to a method of assessing the consistency of test results when two different but comparable versions of the same test are administered to the same group of individuals. It is also commonly referred to as parallel form reliability. Both terms describes the same concept, but parallel form reliability is often used when the two test versions are constructed to be statistically parallel, meaning they emerge from the same thread of the same table of specifications. The nature and strength of relationship are correspondence between the two sets of scores is then established using the coefficient of correlation. So this value ranges from negative 1.0 to positive 1.0. The closer it gets to positive negative 1.0, the more consistent are the scores obtained from the two test trials. The closer the correlation coefficient is to positive 1.0, the more consistent the scores are between the two test trials or versions, indicating high reliability. A higher correlation suggests that the test is stable over time in the case of test retest, or that different forms of the test are measuring the same construct in a consistent manner. In this case of alternate form or parallel form reliability. So this person product moment correlation is used to get the coefficient of correlation with this well-known formula. So the meaning of the equation is the R is the person correlation coefficient, which is range to positive 1 and to negative 1. The N is the number of paired observations or the data points, the summation of the product of paired values x and y, and the summation of all x values, and over the square root of the summation of the squares of x values and the summation of the squares of y values. So this tells us the direction of the relationship if it is positive or negative. The strength of the relationship if it is closer to 1 or negative 1 indicates a strong correlation. This equation is used in statistics, data analysis, and research to measure how two variables move together. With only single administration, split half reliability is workable. This divides the test into two halves using the odd-even split. All the odd-numbered items makes up form A, while the even-numbered items compose form B. The coefficient correlation between the two half tests is obtained using the person product moment correlation with the Spearman-Brown formula applied to estimate the correlation of the full test. So with R as the reliability coefficient for total test and R11 as the coefficient of correlation of the two half tests. This equation is explained to us that the RTT is the estimated reliability coefficient of the entire test. The R11 naman is the reliability coefficient of half the test. This equation estimates how test reliability changes when the length of a test is doubled. Example, combining two halves of a test into a full test, and predict the reliability of a test after it has been shortened or lengthened. So, inter-rater reliability assess the degree to which different judges or raters agree in their assessment decisions. The sets of scores obtained in the test form from two raters can also be subjected to persons R to get the reliability coefficient. So, this is quite useful to avoid doubts on the scoring procedure of tests with non-objective items. When two raters assess the same set of items, persons R can be applied to calculate the reliability of coefficient, which evaluates the level of agreement or consistency between their scores. So, in this internal consistency of responses to all items with the assumption that all items in the test are measures of the same construct, there will be item consistency in the responses of test takers. The procedure will require how the individuals perform um, that gives pass or fail in each item. Kuder-Richardson Formula 20 KR20 will be applied to estimate the reliability coefficient. So the equation is commonly used in items analysis and to estimate the internal consistency reliability of binary scored items, correct or incorrect responses. A higher reliability coefficient of the test value indicates greater reliability, meaning the test items are measuring the same construct consistently. With RTT as the reliability coefficient of whole test and the number of items in the test, variance as standard deviation, uh, so standard deviation of the whole test, and PQ as cross product of the number of students who pass and the number who fall or who fail in each item. So that table shows to us the types of reliability, which is na-discuss na naman natin. So, establishing the validity and estimating the reliability of tests are given attention in this last chapter to emphasize their significance in the development process of large-scale tests. Test documentation must include how reliability is estimated, and this may not be limited to only one type. The more evidences these are of the test reliability, the more convincing the test becomes of its fidelity to measurement consistency. In terms in terms naman sa validity, supporting evidences for the possible score, interpretations, and actions recommended should be effectively reported. So these two technical merits speak well of the test usability for the recommended usage. With large-scale student assessments now growing in acceptance all over, it is important that the integrity of the development process be upheld. So that's all. Thank you.